I just realized you're not going to be able to spin all the way. I mean, you can go pretty far and then go back. Yeah, just make sure you don't tie yourself in the knot. You're good.
Good morning, Threshers. It's nice to see all of you and welcome to Convocation. The title of today's Convocation talk is Choctaw and Kiowa Apache Heritage. This is part of our Fall 2021 series on welcoming all people to campus. We are really fortunate to have a Student Diversity Council on campus. They've sponsored today's convocation. It's in celebration of Indigenous Peoples Day, which is on Monday. And so I'm pleased to welcome Josue, who's a freshman. Cynae, who's a junior. And Marissa, who's a junior. Please give them your undivided attention. And once again, help me welcome them.
Good morning. This morning we would like to acknowledge the peoples who belong to this land for centuries before the foundation of Bethel College. The land where we are now was shared by the Kansa, Osage, and Wichita peoples. We acknowledge the injustice of their forced removal. Indigenous peoples, including the ancestors of the Kansa, Osage, and Wichita, have a history of about 11,000 years on this land we now call Kansas. Colonizers, including my own Mennonite great-great-great-grandparents, began moving into Kansas just some 200 years ago. That means Indigenous peoples have lived on this land for about 55 times as long as Kansas has been a part of the United States. And despite our nation's best efforts to eradicate, decimate, and integrate them, Indigenous peoples continue to live on many of these lands today. For Convocation in honor of Indigenous Peoples Day, celebrated in the United States on October 11th, and throughout the Americas as Dia de la Raza on October 12th, Marissa Harrison, who's Kiowa Apache, and Cynae Wiley, who's Choctaw, will share their experiences as Indigenous women. Please join me in celebrating Indigenous Peoples Day, a time to celebrate and honor the people who have cherished these lands for millennia and who continue to do so even today. Please welcome Marissa Harrison.
Hey guys. Hey. The first thing I'm going to be talking about is Indigenous Peoples Day, or also known as Columbus Day. The history of Indigenous Peoples Day was just brought into, here. Anyway, Columbus Day has been celebrated since 1937 and began to change into Indigenous Peoples Day in the 70s. 1990, South Dakota was the first state to change it to Indigenous Peoples Day. Still, Columbus Day is celebrated in Kansas, but a proposal to change it to Indigenous Peoples Day has been looked over. Joe Biden issued the first ever proclamation commemorating Indigenous Peoples Day. Indigenous Peoples Day celebrates and honors Native American peoples and commemorates their histories and cultures. For Indigenous people all across America, Columbus Day represents the history of disease, genocide, slavery, racism, and creating lasting trauma still affecting Indigenous peoples today. That is why we're fighting for the change. The next thing I will talk about is something that is not very well known. It is National Day of Truth and Reconciliation. The point of this day is it's the anniversary of the uncovering of the mass graves of Indigenous children in boarding schools found on the boarding schools grounds in Canada and also around the US. This is celebrated on September 30th, and it's also known as Orange Shirt Day. This is celebrated by Indigenous peoples in Canada and also the US, obviously because there are boarding schools all around the Americas. The point of these boarding schools was to destroy the culture of Indigenous peoples by taking their children, forcing religion upon them, and murdering them. The slogan of these schools was "Save the man, kill the Indian." We wear the color orange because it represents the strength, power, and resilience that our ancestors had throughout the many years of genocide. The next thing I will talk about is also the Mmiw, which stands for the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women and Children. As of 2016, the National Crime Information Center has reported 5,712 cases of missing Native American and Alaskan Native women and girls. But the U.S. Department of Justice Missing Persons Database has only reported 116 of those cases. The majority of these murders are committed by non-Native people on Native land, which are also called reservations. We wear red in remembrance and the red handprint over the mouth to represent the silencing of an Indigenous woman who face these problems each and every day. The next thing I will talk about is the Kiowa Apache, my tribe's history. We were buffalo hunting, teepee dwelling, and horse nomads located in southwest Oklahoma, who were one of the last to have land colonized. We are nomadic because we followed the buffalo herds all across the Americas. My personal story of being Indigenous, I grew up on the Kiowa Apache Reservation in southwestern Oklahoma. My grandfather taught me the Apache ways until he had passed away whenever I was at a very young age. This gained access for my mom's side of the family to stop my traditional practices and forced religion upon me and had me go to a lot of things that I didn't really connect with spiritually or really resonated with me at all. So I went through a complete identity crisis, and it was hard to really find myself as an Indigenous woman and be strong whenever I was so trampled down as a child and said that it's bad, it's witchcraft, it's just magic that shouldn't be dealt with. But when I went to Heston College, I met my best friend Destiny Kisei, and she is White Mountain Apache. She taught me how to regain that resilience that our ancestors had and to reconnect with my Indigenous roots. I live in a really small town, and the population is about 170. It is mostly populated by non-Native people. So as growing up, being a young Native in school, I was really slandered for being Native American, and then also the impact that my family had bringing up on me on that made it even worse. But here I am today, being a empowered Indigenous woman. Tonka, or buffalo, as you know, are very important and sacred to my people and Indigenous people. The uses that we have for buffalo, we never waste anything. So, every part of the buffalo is used for a variety of tools, weapons, clothing, and teepees. So the bones we carve down so that we could use scraping to create our teepees to use the hide from the buffalo. Our horns were carved down, or the horns were carved down for spoons and bowls. The skull is a sacred and usually painted did it right outside a family's teepee so that you know and you can recognize who's living in that teepee. And then obviously, as I mentioned before, was the hide of the teepee is created and made by the Tonka's skin. Rain. Rain is very important to us because it cleanses the land and is the source of life. So what that connects to us is we are the land and the land is us. Thunder is also very important to us because it is the thunder people or the storm spirits that can do bad things upon you if you were caught on a storm. So that's why you always hear like blown away with the wind. That's kind of where like it came from. To keep our storm spirits nice and settled down, we throw tobacco and fires, and that pleases them. What brings the rain is most of the time a sunrise dance. So the sunrise dance is where a woman or a girl is turning into a woman. So our crown dancers, which is the spirits that come down and help her, guide her through her to her womanhood, they will do this move with their sticks and pull holes in the sky. This happens every weekend, and I don't know, it rains every time, and it's great. It's like a very spiritual moment for every Indigenous person that's supporting the Mmiw or girl that's going through the ceremony. The last thing I want to talk about is dream catchers. Now, anybody in here that has a dream catcher or had one, please raise your hand. Sweet. It's not bad to have dream catchers. The story behind the dream catcher is a half woman, half spider gave her son a dream catcher and made it out of a spider web. That's why it represents the spider web. So, as you know, or if you've heard of, whenever you dream, your dreams go through the spider web and bad dreams are caught and taken down to the feathers. Now, to properly use this, to use the dream catcher, you would put it placed over your bed, obviously where you sleep, or somewhere that's very, a resting place for you. And you want the light to shine on it because the sun burns away all the bad dreams, because if it gets filled up too much, the feathers, then the bad dreams will go right down into your head and you'll have bad dreams still. So that's how you properly use a dream catcher. And also the Oklahoma flag is a dream catcher if you didn't know. Thank you for listening and having me talk, and here is Cynae Wiley.
Hello, everybody. So for those of you guys who don't know me, my name is Cynae Wiley. I'm Choctaw, and I'm a part of the Choctaw Nation. I want to start off today talking a little bit about my family history so you guys can kind of get an idea of where I came from and how I got into this whole thing. So pictured here on the left, this Native woman, her name is Mmiw. She would not claim it. She was half-blood Cherokee, and she did not claim that at all. And so she had 12 children, and her oldest was Flora. And so Flora she grew up, and she married this Choctaw man named Wiley Brown. And her family heard about this, and they disowned her. And so she goes on and has a child, which is my Mmiw, my great-grandmother. And so soon after that, Flora passed away from pneumonia. And so the horns came over, and they took my Mmiw away from Willard, and they held him at gunpoint. And they burned his house down, and they ran him off and said, "Don't come back." And so Mmiw was taken back with them, and she was treated very poorly because she was a half-blood. And so she was brought up to fear Indians. And so anytime Willard would try to come around and visit her when the horns weren't home, she would run and she would hide in trees, and she would hide and she would get away from him because she didn't know what this scary Indian man was going to do to her. And she didn't realize until she was a lot older just how much conditioning and prejudice had been put onto her. And by that time that she had realized this, she already had my pap and the other 3 brothers. And so my pap was raised the same way she was. And so I remember my pap telling me a story. He went off to college and in Wilburton, Durant, Oklahoma. And he got there and he kept getting called an apple. And an apple, if you don't know, it's a derogatory term, and it means red skin on the outside and white on the inside. And so he very much did not want to be a part of this culture. He didn't want to be Native. He wanted nothing to do with it. And so when he was raising my mother, she went off to college, and she wanted Choctaw Nation scholarship money. I gave Choctaw Nation scholarship money. And he said no, he wouldn't let her take any part of that. And so in my Mmiw's late 50s, early 60s, she started to get in touch with that Wiley side of the family, and she started to embrace that culture. And so my mom followed her into that, and so my mom taught us to believe that it's extremely important to know where you came from, understand your heritage, and like express your culture and be proud of it because it's who you are. And so around the age of 7, I started comprehending a lot of this, and by the time I turned 9, I had already made a dress. I sewed my first dress. I started making my own regalia, and I went to my first powwow. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Choctaw Nation's history. So we originally resided in what's now the state of Mississippi, and the region holds the mound, Mmiw, and that's the sacred origin, and it's the mother mound. So this represents like the birthplace of our tribe, and our ancient traditions and our stories. So after removal in the 1830s, this became a symbol of heartbreak and of loss because our people were forcefully removed from this piece of land. And 20,000 Choctaws were removed from this land, and that was known as the Trail of Tears. And we were removed to this Indian territory, which is now Oklahoma. So 1 out of every 3, or about 4 Choctaw people had died during this involuntary removal. And so many more deaths followed during this, and it left 7,000 survivors by the time we made it to Oklahoma. Today, there's more than 70,000 of us that are certified Choctaws. We are the 3rd largest tribe in the nation. We are resided in southeast Oklahoma, and that's also where we have our nation's capital, which is Tuskahoma, and that means Red Warrior. We were mostly matriarchal people, which means we held women and they were like the head of our households, and like we honored them. And then just a fun little fact that Oklahoma was given its name from the Choctaws to the land because it means home of the red man. So in the middle is the Great Seal of the Choctaw Nation, and it's an unstrung bow, it's a strung bow, and it encompasses arrows, and it has a smoke pipe, a hatchet, and a tomahawk in there. And it symbolizes our history and our traditions. And so it shows that we were very peaceful people. And so people pretty much just sat around, they sat in a circle, and they smoked their pipes, and they just talked about what was going on in the tribe and the traditions. And the 3 arrows in the middle represent the 3 great chiefs of the Choctaw Nation. So then over here on the right is me and my mom. She's wearing our Choctaw ceremonial dress. It's been around for about 225 years. They're always in bright colors, and they have different kinds of patterns, and they represent the ruffles on the bottom, they represent the mountains and the valleys, and the trails that are along the side them. So my mom has chosen this pattern of a diamondback rattlesnake, and it's to symbolize respect. So like, for instance, if you go into the woods and you step on this rattlesnake, it's gonna bite you. And so like the respectful thing to do is make sure you're being watchful and you see what's going on in front of you, and make sure you don't walk into this snake. So next, I kind of want to talk to you guys about the powwows and the arena, because I often get asked questions like, what is a powwow? What is an arena? Why do y'all dance in a circle? We do this and we set it up this way because it represents like our life and our unity as like among all of our tribes. The drum is in the center, and it represents like the heartbeat of our people. And so almost every single drum that is used in a traditional powwow or a ceremony has been passed down from generation to generation. And so something else that was stressed to me a lot at powwows was that I dance for those who are not able to. I dance for those whose body will not allow them to, and I dance for those who are no longer with us. As a whole, we dance to celebrate our culture, our heritage, to uphold these long-standing traditions that we have. So just some things to keep in mind if you're ever visiting an arena, or this kind of just applies to every single person. Don't enter the arena unless you are invited. So always be invited into the arena. Make sure you wait for the headman and the headwoman to start dancing before you start dancing. Always go clockwise, because if you go counterclockwise, it's disrespectful. Life always moves forward, and it symbolizes that. You can see in this photo kind of the canopies and their seats in the back, and those are always reserved for the dancers. So people who are visiting, we always ask them to please not sit there because it's disrespectful. And people often take pictures when people aren't when we are not looking, and that's not correct. So be polite and please ask them to take photos with you, because it's sacred and it just has a lot of meaning to the person and to the tribe. And then I want to talk about singers. So a lot of people call them drummers. They're drummers in the middle of the circle. They're singers. And they're singers because they sing with heart, they sing with passion, they sing with purpose. The drum is there to keep that beat, but they sing with only words, so they're called singers. And then I just kind of wanted to touch, we always do everything with our elders in mind. So when we dance, we always stand tall, we stay straight. We don't talk, especially during competition, and we don't smile because it's a very serious thing, and it's a serious ceremony and a celebration. Respect to us is not a commodity, it's a way of being. And so basically we respect in this arena, we respect the earth and the dancers and what has been given to us, and in return we expect it to respect us. And then finally, I just kind of wanted to talk about my jingle dress that I'm wearing. It's a medicine dress. It's from the northern Ojibwe tribe. And so the little story behind this dress is that one day this medicine man's granddaughter got extremely ill. And so he sees this in a dream, and his spirit guides come down to him, and they're like, make this dress for this girl, and she will get better. And they show him this jingle dress, and he's like, okay. So he goes out the next day, and he makes this jingle dress. And he goes and he puts it on this girl. And at first she can't move, so her tribe picks her up, and they take her, and they start dancing with her. And when they do that, she starts to feel better, and eventually she can start to dance on her own. And so this dress did exactly what it was supposed to, and it healed her, and it cured her of this horrible illness. And so this dance is a dance of healing, and it's a dance of pride, and it's extremely fun to watch, but it has a very serious purpose, which is to heal sick people. So obviously this dress has a lot of metal cones on it, exactly what I'm wearing, and it's sewed this way to make a distinctive noise. And this noise is to scare away those evil spirits or those illnesses or those sicknesses that people get. It pushes all that away so you stay healthy. And so now our dresses are represented in a bunch of bright colors, and it pushes us to be better dancers and be very elegant when we are inside of the arena. So with that, we are going to ask that some of you guys, if you want to, you guys can come, and Marissa's going to come down there and dance with you guys. And then please make sure you remain seated if you're not getting up, because we're going to have questions after this. But we're going to play like a 2-minute snippet for y'all so you can see kind of what we do. If you want to participate with her, that'd be more than welcome. So, and then after we're done, make sure that you go back to your seats if y'all want to ask anything about regalia or anything along those lines. So.
Me and Josue are going to teach you how to do the dance. Just come up and we're going to form a circle right here. So if you want to just stand up and like, the whole softball team can. I mean, anybody?
Come on, join us. You'll have fun. Come on, join us. Get some energy.
All right.
Let's go.
Okay. All right. So this is going to signify.
Join us.
right, now we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, like that. To the beat of the drum. It's just simple. Yeah,
Marissa, do it in the center. Just say what you do.
Alright, so everybody's gonna lock arms like you're gonna, marry them. Sorry. Love each other. Alright, so to the beat of the drum, we're gonna go like this with our feet. So we're going 1, 2, 3, 4, okay? And then once you do those fours, forward, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and slowly make a circle. So we'll be rotating too. And then the whole point of this is to support Cynae. This is how we all together as a nation and as a tribe support each other. Yes. First you're going forth and we're going side like that too. So you're literally... Yeah. So if you guys want to connect those right here too. We're dancing. Alright, so let's do a practice. Ready? Ready? 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Now go to the side. 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright. Now let's do it to the beat of the drums. Oh, jeez. Ready? 1.
So if you guys have any questions about anything, then we'll do welcome.
Okay, as Cynae said, now is time for questions. We have one microphone right back there in the middle. Or you can come up to the podium.
Thank you for this beautiful presentation. I'm curious, I've heard that hair is very sacred. So can you share a little bit more about that?
Yes. So my hair in general in my nation is very sacred, and this is my hair pouch. This keeps all my hair in it. I keep all my hair in it. There's tons and tons. I know it sounds disgusting, but there's a point to it. So our hair is very sacred, and so basically our hair goes to our spirit. That's why it grows from out of us. Now, my hair used to be really long, but whenever somebody close to you passes away or goes to the spirit world, you cut your hair so that you're taking a piece of that life that you had with them, and you're putting away with it. And whenever we do this to get rid of our hair and to put it up to the spirits, we burn it with white sage, and it's called smudging. So, yeah.
Well, thank you for that. It's awesome. So, clearly most of the people dancing are not indigenous, or at least not Kiowa, Apache, or Choctaw. Is that typically like an okay thing at powwows or in traditional dances to have people who are not part of the tribe or not indigenous to join?
During certain songs, if it's a memorial song, and we're honoring veterans or we're honoring people who have served us, you can always come into the arena and just make sure you enter clockwise. And typically they have a blanket laid down and you can put money on it and you can stay for the rest of that song. There's also, what we did was an intertribal dance just now, and that means everybody's welcome generally. If you are not Native American, you don't have anything, you can wear your street clothes. If you are Native and you don't have your regalia on, you put on a shawl before you enter the arena. That's pretty much it. People are welcome during most songs, unless it's competition.
So, there's competition dances too?
What I do is a competition dance. If I'm not in this, what I'm doing, I do kind of what Marissa does. I have another dress, and it's cloth. There's cloth, buckskin, grass, fancy dance, fancy shawl, and a lot more kind of dances like that. And it just depends what you are and what you can do.
That's cool. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Sorry, we can't hear you.
So the correct term to us is, you can use Native American, Indigenous Peoples, Native, or you can also go by our nation. So it's like, hi, my name's Marissa, and I'm Kiowa Apache, or like, she's Kiowa Apache.
I'm going to add just a little to that. So it depends on, different indigenous people have different words they want to be called by. So there really isn't not all indigenous people think the same way. So we all have different understandings of the history of certain words and how we want those words to be used. So yeah, it just depends on the indigenous person. For most people, as Marissa said, Native American or indigenous is a good safe bet.
And just for like that, the term Indian, you guys kind of know the history about that, but we don't typically go by that. It's just because it was kind of used as a derogatory way by the white people back, when they were forcing us out of the land and stuff, so people don't usually want to be called that. They'll respond to it and stuff, but it's not typically what they would like to be called. So natives, like you said, is pretty good.
It's just like a whole point of educating yourself. Like I talked to a friend last night and she didn't know that it was a derogatory term because it's so widely used around the United States and also Canada. So yeah, it's just the education part.
First of all, thank you for presenting today. This is all really cool to me. I like hearing about your heritage and the Native family and hearing stories about that. Just kind of going off that question, there's been a lot of public attention recently to mascots and sports names. The Cleveland Indians recently announced that they're changing their name. The Washington Redskins dropped the term Redskins 2 years ago. And so I just wanted to kind of get some perspective from you on whether you feel those changes have a positive effect.
So, I mean, I know how like upset people were about like the change of Redskin for like, you know, the Washington, like the team. But, I mean, it was a really old team. Honestly, I think the change is good because it also educates people of why it's so like controversial between Indigenous peoples and the name in terms. So yeah, and it's on the fence about people because like my generation, obviously we like know like Indian is not a term you know refer to us because Christopher Columbus called us Indians because he thought he was in India. So if you talk to me, I think the change is good. If you talk to older ancestors or generations, they kind of grew in terms because of the generational trauma that genocide in those boarding schools and assimilations brought upon them. So a lot of them who survived those boarding schools did believe that they were Indians.
I think in terms of, you mentioned that Indigenous people are used as mascots. I think that is fundamentally the problem. To use a whole, like a group of people as a mascot is rooted in the history of dehumanizing Indigenous people. So changing the use of Indigenous people as mascots is continuing to recognize the humanity of the people who have, for hundreds of years now, been denied the right to exist.
Cynae, you mentioned earlier that like you made was that dress the one you made, or was it like are there other dresses that you made yourself?
Okay, so no, okay, so I made this dress that this girl is wearing. She's wearing fancy shawl. That's my fancy shawl dress. I grew out of it. I got too big, so I was teaching her in this photo. I was teaching her how to do it, and so we made that dress by hand. This dress, my mom kind of got old. She can't really see anymore. And so we paid one of our friends, and she made it for us. So it is handmade by somebody we know. We did not personally make this. My mom beaded these. I beaded the earrings. She beaded this. She makes pretty much everything for me. We made these mocks when I was really young, and we put this beadwork on it. And yeah, so mostly everything that you see in the powwow, everything is handmade. Just about every single thing. You can't really buy anything other than that. Yeah. Thank you.
Hi, thank you so much for today. This was just awesome. So great to learn more. So I just wanted to hear your perspective. A lot of us in the States have learned the history of the Americas from a colonialism perspective, and so I just kind of wanted to hear your perspective on what some steps that we can take to kind of relearn history from different perspectives and just kind of understand that a little bit better.
So what you can do, I mean, so there's this, if this comes off bad, I'm really sorry. I really love people, anyway. But, so use your, sorry. As you being a white person or whoever is white here, speak up. Like, it's just like with the woman that was just found, if you guys heard the story of the Wyoming woman who was just found and there was a big case about it. There were cases of Indigenous women way before her and are even now that aren't even known or broadcasted, and there are a little over 1,200 of them. So if you speak up as yourself, being an influencer, somebody big on like Instagram or any kind of social media, like bring people to their attention, because that's what we want to do. And I don't know, has anybody heard about the Minnesota Pipeline 3? Barely anybody. See what I mean? The Minnesota Pipeline 3 is the pipeline that's going to go through indigenous lands and completely destroy their water source on that reservation. So if you just speak up and you help us, because we know we're hidden and we don't have that very big of a voice because a lot of people don't see us as people. So if you could just support us and like that will completely help us and make the change.
So was the question like how do we engage in the process of relearning non-colonial history? Okay. So I think one of the first steps is to understand. The first step is to dedicate yourself to doing that. To choose to learn that alternative history. I think there are many ways to do that. I think an important thing is to engage in relationships to seek out relationships and to engage in relationships with those marginalized people, with indigenous people, with indigenous communities. I think it's important. One of the pitfalls is to rely on those communities to educate you, and you want to be careful not to put that pressure and that responsibility on the wrong person. So I think your question is good in that you acknowledge that it is the responsibility of the colonizer to educate themselves on alternative history. And once you make that realization, I think that in and of itself is a good first step and the most important first step.
Thank you again, Jose and Marissa and Cynae. It was wonderful to hear about your heritage, and we appreciate the generous and very knowledgeable presentation. Please help me give them a round of applause, and then you're dismissed.